Okay, so we've journalized all these various transactions and gotten great experience with that. Now it's time to move forward. Well, what does moving forward really mean? First of all, we need to rule and prove our journal. Now, we will do this page by page. And at the end of the month, we're going to prove cash. What does that mean? Making sure that what we have in our accounting system matches what we actually have in the bank. Now, disclaimer, we're assuming no timing issues. We're assuming, we use the term cleared. All of our checks have cleared, they show up in our bank. All of our deposits have cleared, they show up. Later on, we'll talk about actually reconciling cash accounts. For now, we're just assuming everything matches because there's no timing differences in our activities. And then identifying correct areas using standard accounting practices, which is generally don't get your eraser out or try to like get all fancy and right over the top. With accounting, we just write over our errors, cross them out, either change them or just cross them out and leave them like let's just cross it out and start all over again with a different entry. And again, I must say that in addition to proving our cash and ruling our journal, that this process we're going through is very meticulous and very important to be accurate. Again, with accounting, close is not good enough. It has got to be accurate to the penny. And until it's accurate, we can't go on with this whole posting process that we're going to do in chapter 4. It's not going to work. It's going to be a can of worms if we don't do the legwork here to prove cash and our journals before we move forward. And again, I must say, we're using a very manual accounting system. I've said it in all the sections here, a very manual accounting system to learn the theory behind what we're doing. Okay? You're probably wondering, am I going to go with small slides all the way? No, I'm not. It says proving and ruling a journal page. Okay. Well, we had all of those transactions up above in our previous lesson. And we got down to the bottom at the end of the column, and then, by the way, debits have to equal credits, right? At the end of the day, debits have to equal credit. It's a very important process that we prove each page and before we move forward. So we add the amount of each column, the general debit column, the general credit column, the sales credit column, and both the cash debit and credit column. Of course, sales and cash are those special columns we've been posting to. And after we total the columns, we then total the debits and the total credits. The general debit and the cash debit, the general credit, the sales credit, and the cash credit. And again, debits must equal credits. At each column, add the debit column totals and the credit column totals. Verify that they match. That page 1 of the journal is proved before we move on to the next page. Again, disclaimer, very manual accounting system, correct? Yes. Totals are equal. Very good. All right. So here's our ruling of our journal page. Now you can see the white space in the middle are all the transactions in between January 3rd and 23rd. Just because of space, we couldn't get all those in there. But this is what our journal page will look like. We're assuming we're at the bottom of the page. We put a line all the way across. So let's just go through the steps here. Rule a single line to indicate the columns are to be totaled. So we're running that all the way across our good old accounting paper. Again, if you have QuickBooks, you'll be doing something similar to this. All right. Although with QuickBooks, you wouldn't be ruling a page. You would just be doing a total at the end of the month. It's all one big page when it's electronic, in other words. All right. Single rule, write the date in the date column, the 23rd. We're carrying forward in our account title, carried forward to the next page. Place a check mark in the post reference column, which means we're not going to actually post these totals because they're not related to individual account activity, like so. Post reference. Write each column total below the single line. You can see where we've done that. Rule double lines indicates the amounts are totals and the sum of the totals equal what? Equal the sum of the credit totals. All right, very nice. Column totals. Double rule to say, hey, we're good. We've checked that. That's what the double rule means. I've always wondered, what was single rule, double rule, all that? There you go. We've proved the journal. It's good to go forward. Okay. Double rule. Then we say brought forward. We say carried forward from the previous page, brought forward onto the next page. Write the page number at the top of the journal, page 2 up there. Write the date in the date column. We're going to put the month and year as well, by the way, on the first row of the next page. Meticulous stuff, huh? And notice how they've got 20 for whatever year that we happen to be in. All right. Right, brought forward, place a check mark in the post reference column, which means this isn't actually going to get posted. Brought forward, record the column totals brought forward from the previous page. And you're going to do this every time you start a new page if you're using this manual accounting system, which I got to say, most people would not be using this, but we're using it as an illustration to learn accounting theory. Have I said that before? I think I have. All right. Proving and ruling a journal at the end of the month. So now we get down to the bottom of page 2. We're somewhere halfway down page 2, and we're done for the month. All right. We've carried stuff forward. Rule a single line, indicate the columns are to be totaled, right there. Write the date in the date column. We're at the end of January, the 31st. Write totals in account title column, totals. So we're done, right there. Write each column total below the single line there. And again, make sure, indicate to put double lines in to indicate you've got your account totals and the debit totals equal the credit totals. Double rule. And there's what your activity looks like. Debits 5748 general, cash 7120, total 12868, and you can see the credits there match as well. You cannot move on with posting to any accounts until you make sure your journal entries, your journalizing, your debits equal your credits. Do not do it. Okay, you've got a problem somewhere. And by the way, we'll talk about dividing by 2, dividing by 9, all that good stuff for rules to sniff out errors that you might have made. Because I'll tell you what, every good accountant makes errors. So when we say we're proving cash, we're determining that the amount of cash agrees about the amount of cash we have in the bank. We go to like our online banking and check our balance, making sure that matches our accounting records. Well, what are we talking about? Cash on hand at the beginning of the month. We just started this business, right? Because remember, the very first transaction was our owner put money in. Michael Delgado put cash in. Total cash received during the month, 7120. Now pause here just for a moment. Remember, Michael Delgado is keeping his personal finances separate from his business like bank account. You got to keep that's separation. You got to keep those two things separate, or else things get really whacked out after a while. So we received 7120 in cash equals total 7120. That should match what we have at the bottom of our debit for cash in our special column in our multi-column journal. Total cash paid during the month, 4523. That should match what we have in our credit special column, credit for cash in our multi-column journal. The difference between debits to cash and credits to cash should equal the cash balance at the end of the month, 2597, and we would double rule that to verify that it matches the bank balance in my checkbook on the next unused check stub if we're using that kind of a system in the checkbook. 2597, it matches. All right, that's proving cash. Does our multi-column journal equal what we have in our checkbook? Because we're keeping track of our account activity using the check stubs in our checkbook. How about correcting errors in journal entries? Well, we make errors, don't we? Let's take a look here. An error is recorded, cancel the error by neatly drawing a line through the incorrect item. Write the correct item immediately above the canceled item. For example, here we lost a 0. We made a sales credit to cash. We put $450 instead of $4,500. We just crossed out $450. We put $4,500 up above. So our debits match our credits. Here we did advertising expense. We put $400. Oops, we did the wrong thing. Here we decided to just, hey, we'll just cross out the whole thing and go to the next line and put advertising expense. Sometimes an entire entry is incorrect, like we did in number 2. We just put lines through the whole thing, which means we're not going to post it. Forget it. So we don't have to worry about it. Sometimes several correct entries are recorded after an incorrect entry is made. We're going to do this kind of stuff. It's not always going to be able to be chronological in date order, right? We're doing our best, okay? But here you can see we made some mistakes. We went back. Here we went to say miscellaneous expense instead of supplies expense. And again, I just have to say, here again is where if we have a computerized accounting system, we would go back and correct hopefully before we'd correct this before we posted, we'd go back and correct the classifying of our accounts, which you can easily do with a computer. You're not crossing stuff out on the computer. Now you can go back with computer entries and go back and void them, which is kind of the same effect as this. But you can actually correct them before you post them, which we're doing in chapter 4. Okay. Again, draw neat lines through all the incorrect parts and then write the correct stuff in either above or on a new line below. Kind of pretty intuitive, I think, right? And here they're pointing to the various ways we can correct entries. So list the 3 steps for proving a journal. We add each of the columns. We get the debit column totals and the credit column totals. And then we make sure our debits equal our credits. 3 steps for proving the journal. And again, if they're not matching, don't go forward. State the formula for proving cash. Cash on hand beginning of the month plus total cash received during the month minus total cash paid during the month equals our cash balance. What we started with, what we added, what we subtracted, our new balance at the end should match what we have on our check stub. And theoretically, what we have in the bank, we'll talk about journalizing bank entries where they might charge us a service fee or something like that. All right. 5 steps to rule a journal at the end of the month. Again, rule a single line, put the date in. Now, wait a second. This isn't the end of the month. This is for a page. It says write carried forward. Typo. I just found it. Live video. Okay. It says carried forward in the account column title. Place a check mark in the post reference column. Write each column total below the single line. Rule double lines below the column totals all across to verify debits equal credits. Now, I feel like I'm a little bit stuck here because this shouldn't be the end of the month. If it was the end of the month, we would say write totals in the account column title, like we just worked through. Here, when we say carried forward, we'd have to go to the next page and say brought forward and bring all those account column titles forward. So that was a typo there. That was bad. Okay, let's go dive into our assignment here. And where I'm going here is to the, working papers 3-4 up here. Okay. Working papers 3-4 and the work together. I'm going to change those amounts for MindTap. Now we have 4 transactions that we're posting. It says journalize the transactions for April 23 and 27 on page 1 of the journal for April 23 and 27. Okay. Total the columns and complete the proof report for page 1. Okay, so we're journalizing 2 transactions for the 23rd and the 27th. I'm going to pin this up here for now. I'm just following the instructions here. So if we're going to say the 23rd down here, we're going to say 23rd. Sold services on account to K Spawn. Okay. Well, our debit's obviously going to be, if we're selling on account, we've got accounts receivable dash K spa, I should say. We're debiting for 150, and we're crediting sales, right column, 150. Again, I could go back and pull up sales credit. I got to make sure I'm in the right column there. That's for the 23rd. Oh, let's put in our source document, S2. Then on the 27th, paid cash to owner as withdrawal of equity. Well, chart of accounts is probably Norma Dirk's drawing. Yes, it is. Okay, so good old Norma Dirk's paid herself. Again, if you mess up, it'll yell at you, right? I love this system. Otherwise, we spend hours doing this. We're increasing a drawing account. We're decreasing equity by increasing a drawing account. She's pulling $800 out of the business, which of course can be a reduction in cash. Source document C7. Okay, now I just recorded the entries for C20, the 23rd and the 27th. Total the columns and complete the proof report. Okay, now I'm going to total the columns. I'm going to cheat. Okay, I don't want to get a adding machine out, add, blah, blah, blah.